go back to the 1700s for a moment. Okay. Before we completely leave the revolutionary spirit, because I don't think I talked very much about what was going on in France. We know now what the reactions were back in England. When did the Gordon riots take place? Oddly, they're not on here. You'll have to write them in. Does anybody remember? When did...
Around the same, like 1750, 1745.
Okay, that was the first rebellion. That was or rather the last of the Jacobite rebellions. So that was Bonnie Prince Charlie in Scotland. It's actually almost in the French Revolution period. It's the 1780s. So it's right on the cusp of that period when England was still reeling from the loss of the colonies. So in 1780, the revolution that almost was, the Gordon riots happened. What were the Gordon rioters mad about?
The Irish were being allowed to fight in the English army.
They were or they weren't?
They were.
They were being allowed to fight in the English army. And so there were cries of no popery. Again, this was part of what was going on with the Jacobites as well. So the Stuart, who was the Stuart who tries to stir up the rebellion in 1745? It's not James II, but
Charles.
the young Virginia, Bonnie Prince Charlie. It's the bedpan child. Remember the bedpan child back from the French Revolution? Snuck him in. So it's him grown up. And once again, why do you think all these people who want to start rebellions or to just make the English mad land either in Scotland or in Ireland?
Higher population of Catholics were there.
In the case of Ireland, absolutely. And so that in itself is one of the explanations for why it was such a non-starter for the Scots. And don't get me wrong, the Scots hate the English. I don't know if anybody's seen Braveheart, but they really hate the English. So, despite the Act of Union, what religion are the Scots? No fun Protestantism. There you go. They are dour Calvinist. Yes. But the key is, though they're Protestant, they're not necessarily Anglican Protestant. So once again, it's these differences that give these people hope that they're going to join with them. And Bonnie Prince Charlie even toyed with the idea of converting to Protestantism to make his revolution successful. It's not. He's defeated. So that's a big failure in 45. And these attempts by the Stuarts to retake the throne continues to fan these anti-Catholic flames that have been around since the Protestant Reformation. Why are the English sometimes, often, so virulently anti-Catholic in this period? What are some things that have happened in history that make them upset? Well, but what has happened to the English? Good old Bloody Mary. going all the way back to the Tudor monarchy when Mary Tudor, the one non-Protestant Tudor child, she spends much of her short reign roasting, toasting, otherwise torturing Protestants in England. Now, this is not to say that the Protestants didn't do the same, but that memory really stays. Also, what happens when very early on in the reign of the first Stuart kings?
Catholics are appointed to high offices in the government.
So, there are all these regulations about how much you have to conform to the Anglican Church before you can serve in government. There's suspicion of anyone who has a Catholic background, and limitations on them, especially after the Guy Fawkes rebellion right at the beginning of the 1600s. So, even though Guy Fawkes and his co-Catholic conspirators fails to blow up Parliament, this is literally a holiday. It's still a holiday in England because, you know, why not have a holiday where you burn people in effigy? That's what holidays are all about. So, this bad history stemming out of the era of the Protestant Reformation and the Counter-Reformation gives England this great distaste for Catholicism. But when we get into the Enlightenment era, more and more people are accepting this idea of liberty of conscience. You should be able to worship like you want to worship. And the realists in English politics start to realize that they're going to have to slowly start giving these rights back to their Catholic subjects. So the Gordon riots was a step in that direction, allowing them to serve in the English army. Now, you might imagine that allowing the Irish to be cannon fodder in the English army would have been a big deal, but this is precisely what Gordon and his compatriots riot over, rebel over in 1780, and really for a time kind of chaotically take over London. This is when, you know, the liquor ran through the streets, and then of course it got set on fire, and everything went pretty badly for a while. So it could have been a moment of revolution, but in the end, you know, the English get it under control. What is it, do you think, that saves England time and time again from these possible revolutions in the 18th century? They're just too English to have a revolution? Is it the stiff upper lip? They already, yes, they'd already had its win. 1688. But it wasn't exactly an Enlightenment-style revolution. How was 1688 different from the American Revolution? Yes, Ms. Harrington.
It was more religious, or based in religion, the division. It wasn't so much politics driven as it was, it didn't want a Catholic monarch. So, and that all stems also from Bloody Mary, but also from the War of Spanish Succession, where England was always worried that Spain was going to rise up against them, and rightly so.
These are the people that sent the Armada. It's always bad news, right? So, the Glorious Revolution was for the basic, you know, the majority of the people pretty bloodless. This was really something that was at the top. Now, with the exception of, once again, where did it get a little bit bloody, the fighting in the Glorious Revolution? William of Orange went into what? Ireland. And of course, it's the Battle of the Boyne where He joins with the Northern Irish, finally defeats Southern Irish, and again, this also leaves a pretty bad taste. So England, between the tensions between Catholic and Protestant, and these attempts at a sort of revolution on a more popular front, unlike the Glorious Revolution, it threatens throughout the 18th century. So when the French Revolution first occurs, and the oath of the tennis court is in June of 1789. What type of government did France have at that point?
Yeah, this is a monarch.
An absolute monarchy under the Bourbon dynasty. And that was an absolute monarchy that, unlike England, ran without its parliament. They simply stopped calling together the parliament in France, the Estates General. So Louis, why does he finally have to buckle down and call the Estates General in 1789? Cash. What leads to the rise of Parliament? In England, the purse strings. If you look at documents like the Bill of Rights, who has the right to tax? Only Parliament, and then more specifically, only the House of Commons. So due to him hurting for tax money, he has to call the Estates General. And in the beginning, it looks like it's going to be a rerun of the American Revolution. Why? What was the American Revolution like?
The Enlightenment.
I'm sorry?
Was it based after their ideas, like the Enlightenment?
It's based on the ideas of the Enlightenment. Who leads the revolution in America? Fairly posh and educated folks, right? Bewigged guys in their frock coats. These are not, the peasants living in the streets. So it's this educated elite that starts the American Revolution. It's also the elite who start the agitation in the French Revolution. And it could have easily stayed that way. The more conservative, I really can't use the word conservative. The ones who were for more representative government but were more elite were the Girondins. So they pull together, they start the oath of the tennis court. At this point, many people back in England, especially the Whigs, support the French Revolution. So people like Burke, people like Charles James Fox, support it. Until what starts to change, especially in 1793.
When they execute the king.
The commerce should go with the French Revolution.
Right, it's there. The execution of Louis.
Yeah, they kill their monarch. And when they kill their monarch, this shows to English that they're not going to model their government on the English government. That they're really going in a whole different direction. The terror scares them because who are the most powerful people in England? Well, the aristocracy and the landowning gentry. Yes, they want representative government, but not necessarily that much change in that little time. When it becomes more violent, that's when they retract, and Burke changes his tune from, oh, yay, revolution, to, wait a minute. And this is the beginning also of England kind of divorcing itself from the continent. And that's what we're going to see as we start entering into the 19th century next week and start reading Gasp.